My stepmother put something in my birthday cake that sent me to the hospital. She thought she'd get away with it until the doctors checked the security footage. I never liked my stepmother, but I never thought she actually wanted me dead. When I turned 23, she insisted on baking my birthday cake herself, said it was a peace offering after years of tension. I should have known something was wrong. 2 hours after eating that cake, I was in the emergency room, unable to breathe. My dad thought it was an allergic reaction. The doctors thought it was food poisoning, but when they checked the hospital security cameras from her previous visit, they found something that changed everything. My mom died when I was 12. Car accident. It was just me and my dad for 3 years after that. We were close. We had our routine. We figured out how to be a family of 2. Then when I was 15, my dad met Karen at some work conference. 6 months later, they were married. Karen had 2 kids from her previous marriage, twin boys who were 10 at the time. My dad said we were going to be one big happy family, that Karen was nice and her kids were great and I should give them a chance. I tried. I really did. But Karen made it clear from day one that I was in the way. She wasn't mean exactly. She was just cold. She'd cook dinner for everyone but forget to make enough for me. She'd plan family outings and not tell me until they were leaving. She'd buy stuff for her boys but never get me anything. When I'd complain to my dad, he'd say I was being sensitive, that Karen was adjusting and I should be patient. The twins followed her lead. They'd take my stuff without asking, mess up my room, tell Karen lies about things I supposedly did. She always believed them. My dad always believed her. I was always the problem. By the time I was 18, I couldn't wait to leave. I went to college 2 states away and barely came home. When I did visit, Karen would make comments about how I thought I was too good for the family now. How I'd changed, how I used to be such a sweet girl before I got all these big ideas about independence. My dad never defended me. He'd just change the subject or tell me to ignore her. He'd chosen his new family, and I wasn't really part of it anymore. I graduated college and got a job in the same city where my dad lived. I didn't move back home, but I'd visit occasionally for holidays and birthdays. The visits were always tense. Karen would make passive-aggressive comments. The twins, now teenagers, would ignore me. My dad would pretend everything was fine. When my 23rd birthday came around, I wasn't planning to celebrate with them. I had friends. I had my own life. But my dad called and begged me to come over for dinner. Said Karen wanted to make things right. That she felt bad about how distant we'd been. That she wanted to bake me a birthday cake as a gesture of goodwill. I was suspicious. Karen had never done anything nice for me in 8 years. But my dad sounded so hopeful. So I said yes. I figured one dinner couldn't hurt. I showed up on Saturday evening. The house smelled like chocolate cake. Karen was in the kitchen decorating it. She smiled when she saw me and said, "Happy birthday." It felt fake, but I smiled back. My dad looked so happy to have us in the same room being civil. Dinner was fine, normal. Karen asked about my job. The twins talked about school. My dad told boring work stories. It almost felt like a real family dinner. Almost. Then Karen brought out the cake. 3 layers, chocolate with vanilla frosting. My favorite. She said she'd made it from scratch, that she'd worked on it all day. She cut me a huge slice and watched as I took the first bite. It tasted fine. Really good, actually. I ate the whole piece and had a second smaller one. Karen looked pleased. My dad looked relieved. I thought maybe this was the turning point. Maybe Karen actually was trying. I left about an hour later, drove home, feeling hopeful that maybe our relationship could improve. Maybe the next 8 years didn't have to be like the first 8. Then, about 2 hours after I got home, I started feeling sick. Really sick. My stomach hurt. I felt dizzy. My throat started closing up. I could barely breathe. I called my roommate and she drove me to the emergency room. The ER doctor asked what I'd eaten. I told them about the birthday dinner and the cake. They said it looked like an allergic reaction, but my medical history didn't show any food allergies. They gave me medicine to help me breathe and started running tests. My dad showed up at the hospital about an hour later. Karen wasn't with him. He looked worried and kept asking if I was okay. I told him I didn't know what happened, that I just suddenly got sick. The doctors came back and said my blood work showed high levels of something that shouldn't be there. They couldn't identify it yet, but they were running more tests. They asked detailed questions about everything I'd eaten, where I'd been, who'd prepared my food. I told them about Karen making the cake. One of the doctors asked if anyone in my family had access to medications or chemicals. I said not that I knew of. They said they'd keep investigating, but I needed to stay overnight for observation. My dad stayed with me for a few hours, then left to check on Karen and the boys. He said he'd be back in the morning. I was alone in that hospital room, trying to figure out what happened, trying to understand why I'd gotten so sick from a birthday cake. The next morning, the doctors came in with serious faces. They said they'd identified the substance in my blood. It was a chemical compound found in certain medications. Not something you'd accidentally ingest. Not something that would naturally be in food. They asked again about who'd had access to my food. I said just my family at dinner. Just Karen's cake. They said they needed to ask uncomfortable questions. They asked if I thought someone might have intentionally put something in my food. I didn't want to believe it, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Karen insisting on making the cake herself, watching me eat it, looking pleased when I had a second piece. She'd done something. She'd put something in that cake. The doctors said they were required to report this to the police, since it appeared to be intentional poisoning. I agreed. I gave them all the information I had about the dinner and the cake. My dad came back around noon. I told him what the doctors said, that someone had poisoned my food. He looked shocked, said that was impossible, that it must be a mistake. I said the doctors were sure that someone had deliberately put chemicals in something I ate. He asked if I thought it was Karen. I said I didn't know what else to think. He got defensive immediately, said Karen would never do something like that, that I was jumping to conclusions, that maybe it was a mistake at a restaurant or something I'd eaten earlier in the day. I reminded him the only thing I'd eaten that day was Karen's cake. He said there had to be another explanation, that I'd always had it out for Karen and now I was using this to attack her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'd almost died and he was defending her. The police came that afternoon to take my statement. I told them everything about the dinner, the cake, the strained relationship with Karen. They said they'd investigate and asked if I had any of the cake left. I didn't. It was all at my dad's house. They went to the house to collect evidence. My dad called me furious, said I'd sent police to his home, that I was accusing his wife of attempted murder, that I was tearing the family apart. I told him I almost died and someone needed to answer for it. He hung up on me, but she had been lying about this for years. Not about the poisoning specifically, but about who she was. The caring stepmother who just wanted to be part of the family. Really, she'd hated me from the beginning and apparently wanted me gone permanently. The police tested the remaining cake, found the same chemical compound the doctors had identified in my blood. It was a pesticide, the kind used for killing rodents. Someone had baked it directly into the cake batter. Karen was brought in for questioning. She denied everything, said she'd just baked a normal cake, that she had no idea how anything got into it, that maybe someone else had tampered with it after she made it. The police didn't believe her. They searched the house and found a container of the pesticide in the garage. It had Karen's fingerprints all over it. They also found internet search history on her computer. Searches about how much of the chemical would make someone sick. Searches about whether it could be detected in food. Searches from 2 weeks before my birthday. I had no idea the full extent of their betrayal. She hadn't just snapped and done something impulsive. She'd planned this for weeks. She'd researched how to poison me without getting caught. She'd calculated dosages. She'd deliberately tried to kill me. The police arrested her. My dad hired her a lawyer and posted her bail. He called me and said I was ruining his life. That Karen said it was all a misunderstanding, that the chemicals must have contaminated the cake accidentally. I asked how chemicals accidentally get baked into cake batter. He didn't have an answer. My extended family started taking sides. Some believed me. Others thought I was exaggerating or lying for attention. Karen's family was telling everyone I'd always hated her and was making false accusations. It was chaos. Then a detective called me with something knew. They'd pulled security footage from the hospital, not from my recent visit, but from 3 months earlier. Karen had been at the same hospital visiting a friend. While she was there, she'd gone into a restricted area where medication samples were stored. The cameras showed her pocketing several items. The detective said they'd checked what was taken. One of the items was a medication that, in high doses, could cause the exact symptoms I'd experienced. The working theory was she'd tried this before. 3 months ago, she'd tested a smaller dose to see what would happen. I remembered. 3 months ago, I'd had dinner at their house and felt sick after. Not hospital-level sick, just bad stomach cramps and dizziness. I'd thought it was something I ate. Food poisoning. Karen had been so concerned, so caring. She'd given me medicine and sent me home. She'd poisoned me before, as a test run, to see if it would work. When it didn't put me in the hospital, she'd escalated, used something stronger for my birthday. When I showed them the evidence, everything changed. My dad couldn't deny it anymore. Couldn't make excuses. The cameras didn't lie. The internet searches didn't lie. Karen had tried to kill me. Twice. Karen's lawyer tried to work out a plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't interested. The evidence was too strong. Attempted murder charges were filed, 2 counts because of the earlier poisoning incident. The trial took 8 months to start. During that time, my dad moved out of the house. He didn't divorce Karen, but he couldn't stay with her. He rented an apartment and basically shut down emotionally. He'd call me occasionally, but we didn't talk about Karen or the case. He just couldn't handle it. The twins went to live with their biological father. I actually felt bad for them. They'd lost their mom because of what she'd done. Even though they'd never been nice to me, they didn't deserve that. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I had to testify, had to sit there and tell the courtroom about years of mistreatment, about the birthday dinner, about waking up unable to breathe. Karen sat there the whole time, looking emotionless. The prosecution played the security footage from the hospital, showed Karen stealing medication, showed timestamps proving she'd been planning this, showed the internet search history. Her lawyer tried to argue it was circumstantial, but the jury didn't buy it. Karen took the stand in her own defense. She tried to cry and say she loved me like a daughter, that she'd never hurt me, that this was all a tragic misunderstanding. But when the prosecutor cross-examined her, she couldn't explain the searches, couldn't explain the stolen medication, couldn't explain why the pesticide with her fingerprints was in the garage. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, found her guilty on both counts of attempted murder. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She'd be in her 60s when she got out. My dad collapsed in the courtroom when the verdict was read. He'd been in denial the whole time, kept thinking there'd be some explanation that would make sense, some way this would all be a mistake. But it wasn't. His wife had tried to kill his daughter. There was no coming back from that. After the trial, I had to rebuild my life. I was in therapy, dealing with the trauma of knowing someone had tried to murder me, of knowing it was someone who was supposed to be family, someone who'd sat across from me at dinner tables and smiled while secretly hating me enough to want me dead. My relationship with my dad was complicated. He'd eventually apologized, said he should have seen the signs, should have protected me, should have believed me when I said Karen treated me differently. But apologies don't erase 8 years of being ignored, of being made to feel like I didn't matter. We see each other occasionally now. Holidays, sometimes his birthday. It's cordial but distant. We both know too much has happened. Too much damage was done. He chose Karen over me for years, and even though he regrets it now, I can't forget it. I moved to a different city last year, started completely fresh. New job, new apartment, new friends who don't know anything about my past unless I choose to tell them. I'm dating someone who thinks I'm brave for surviving what I survived, who doesn't see me as damaged or dramatic, just someone who went through something horrible and came out the other side. Karen writes me letters from prison. I don't read them. My lawyer advised me not to have any contact. She's trying to appeal her sentence, claiming her lawyer was ineffective. It won't work. The evidence was too clear. What I learned from all this is that evil doesn't always look like evil. Karen wasn't some cartoon villain. She was a regular person who went to PTA meetings and baked cookies and seemed normal to everyone else. But underneath that, she was capable of trying to murder someone just because she didn't like them, because she resented their existence in her perfect new family. I also learned that you can't force family bonds. My dad wanted me to accept Karen, wanted me to try harder, wanted me to overlook how she treated me. But some people can't be won over. Some people will hate you no matter what you do, and forcing yourself to keep trying just gives them more opportunities to hurt you. The security cameras saved my life. If the hospital hadn't had that footage of Karen stealing medication, she might have gotten away with it. She could have claimed it was all an accident, could have played the concerned stepmother, could have tried again later when I let my guard down. I'm grateful the truth came out, that she's in prison where she can't hurt me or anyone else, that my dad finally had to face who he'd married, that I got justice even though I almost died getting it. I don't forgive Karen. People keep telling me forgiveness is for my own peace, not for her. But I don't need to forgive someone who tried to murder me to find peace. I found peace by removing her from my life permanently, by making sure she faced consequences, by refusing to be the bigger person when someone literally tried to poison me to death. My advice to anyone in a similar situation, dealing with toxic step-parents or family members who treat you like you don't belong: trust your instincts. I always knew something was wrong with Karen. I always knew she didn't like me. I should have listened to that feeling instead of letting my dad convince me I was being paranoid. And if someone ever makes you feel unsafe, even if they're family, especially if they're family, get away. Set boundaries. Protect yourself, because some people will smile to your face while planning your destruction, and you deserve better than that. Subscribe if you believe toxic family members need to face real consequences.